So the what you see in front of you on the screen is from the second bracha of the Musaf, not the second, the second middle bracha of the Musaf Shemona Esrei on Rosh Hashanah. There's Malchios, first additional bracha, Zichronos, that's the second one, and Shofros, the third one. And the second one is the most difficult to really grasp. So let's take a bit of time and we can start. And once you get the idea, I think if you go out with a machzor, then you'll be able to understand much better. And Zichronos has two meanings. Zichronos means that we should remember that Hashem remembers us and that we should remember Hashem. Right? That we have to always be conscious of Hashem, and Hashem is always conscious of us. Okay, so let's start here, and I'm going to go through it mostly with this parish called Derech HaChaim on the bottom. You remember the deeds which have done throughout the entire world. In other words, forever. Upokei kol yitzurei kedem, and you visit, you check up on all the things you created in ancient days. What does that mean? Let's see Derech Chaim. He says Zocher Nerma Masi. He says Zocher is talking about the activities. Maaseh is something which people did. Or Upokei Nemar Al Hosim. That's about the people who do it. This stuff, right? You remember the deeds and remember the people who do them. Mashufkar Alehem Me'onesh. What has been when they've been checked up and have they been punished, or ma'onesh yushulam lahem, or what punishment should they get in the future? Kamo bakanti b'shevet pisham. Like it says, I'm going to visit or check up with my staff, which is obviously with the punishment, the crimes of the people who are sinning. So now it says here though, it's a funny language. Okay, you remember all the deeds which happened. And you're okay, and you also check up on the people who did them. But why does it say Yitzurei Kedem, ancients? So it says here, L'kach Amar Kol Yitzurei Kedem Sh'afa Mesim Ein Bedin. It says everything which was created, even in ancient times, because even dead people are judged on Rosh Hashanah. And I want to explain what that means. Why should a dead person be judged on Rosh Hashanah? So everything we do in this world has ramifications. If I come into school and I say something nasty to a girl, and a girl goes off the derech, and she marries off the derech, and she has kids off the derech, so I'm responsible for that, and she's also responsible, and both of us are responsible, and I'm going to get punished for that. On the other hand, if I say something nice to a girl, and she becomes, even more committed to learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, and the family is uplifted by that, so then I get credit for that. So each and every year on Rosh Hashanah, you're judged on what happened if you're dead, what happened the previous year as a result of things you set in motion in this world. Okay, everybody sets stuff in motion in this world, and that keeps on going after you're dead. So that people like Rashi get tremendous schar, a tremendous reward, because every year more and more people learn the Perush Rashi, and so on and so forth. So everybody who ever existed is judged on Rosh Hashanah, not just people alive today, but people who died. And now we want to find out what exactly they. Now Shem says, okay, let's see what ramifications, what's been going on with the stuff that you did in this world. How's it playing out now? In front of you are revealed all things which are hidden, and those things which are concealed from Bereshis, from the beginning of time. So again, what's the difference between talumos and nistaros? Both seem to mean things which are concealed or hidden. So the Derech Chaim says talumos nemar machshavos. Talumos is something which is completely hidden. It's that story about your thoughts. I don't know if you knew this. Not even malachim know you're thinking. Nobody knows what you're thinking besides the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Do you know that? Not even malachim know. So that's talumah is like a mystery, something concealed. which nobody knows I am the Malachim. Because Baruch Hu knows. So it never got into this world. In other words, it's something which never actually came into practice. Just a thought which you have, you also judge on your thoughts, right? If your thoughts are were good thoughts, bad thoughts, depending on what they are. Of course, a thought which never came out to an actual deed is less of a problem than one which came out to an actual deed. And most of them you're not punished for. But there's certain ones which you are punished for, such as when you thought and premeditated something, you decided you're going to do something, and then you went and you did an Avera. So then that's to a certain extent that's worse than if you do an Avera on the spur of the moment. Because the planning involved adds a level of responsibility. So when you do the Avera, that planning which went into it also is taken into account in the determining whether you get punished or not. On the other hand, we have a special chesed of Kosh Baruch Hu, Am Yisrael special chesed, that machshava toiva Kosh Baruch Hu mitzaref l'maisa. Hashem considers good thoughts which we had as if we did them. It's a tremendous chesed. He doesn't consider bad thoughts as if we did them. He says the good thoughts as if we did them. So therefore, it's on the one hand, it's to our disadvantage that Hashem knows our thoughts. On the other hand, it's to our advantage, right? So therefore, that was saying Hashem knows all our thoughts. It's about things which were done in secret, the activities which were done in secret, not thoughts, right? Things which I've concealed from other people, right? So the talumos are mysteries which are never revealed because they're in my head. Hamon Yisros are things I conceal, because all of us, when we do bad things, we like concealing them. We don't like revealing them. We get embarrassed, right? So we say on Rosh Hashanah, hey, but not today. Today, everybody sees everything that you did in this world. Okay, but everybody sees. Sorry, because Baruch Hu sees everything that you did and takes into account. Because there's no forgetfulness in front of your kisei hakavod. So he says there, klomar, meaning a person is not making a mistake to say that they're remembering who kederech ish hazocher. It's like a person remembers. By the Ramiyan Nafshe means he has to think about it. Umarka then remembers. Says there's no forgetfulness. There's no such thing as forgetfulness by Hashem. From remembering the deeds, when he starts from the bar, so nothing is concealed from Hashem's hashgacha. So what he's saying is like this. Obviously, human beings, it's hard for us to remember lots of things. And sometimes we have to have something to jog our memory in order to remember things which happened. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no forgetfulness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's the Hebrew, there's an Aramaic word for human beings, which is inshe. And the Gemara has a planned words. Inshe also means forgetful. And the Gemara says, Lipa the inshe. The hard people is forgetful, which is it's an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that if you did something terribly embarrassing and of which you're ashamed, eventually forget it. That's a good thing. The disadvantage is that you might not remember something you did wrong to do tshuva for it. But human beings forget. Hashem obviously doesn't forget. But it's a very interesting language. There's no forgetfulness in front of your throne of glory. So this is the throne of glory of Hashem is obviously not real. Hashem doesn't need a throne, right? It's just a mashal, a metaphor. But at the throne of glory of Hashem, and Chazal say, on that throne, the image of Yaakov Avinu is carved. So again, it's not a metaphor, it's not real. But the idea is that Yaakov represents Klal Yisrael. And the throne of Hashem is defined as Klal Yisrael's Avodas Hashem and Kiddush Hashem throughout all the generations. And that's what the pasuk says after the war against Amalek, Kiyad al Keis Kol Milchamol Hashem B'Amalek Midor Dor. Hashem took an oath by his chair. He has a war against Amalek from generation to generation. Chazal say, Ena Kisei Sholem. The word there is case, Chaf Samech, without the last aleph. Why is it? Because as long as there's still evil in the world, as long as they're still fighting it, the throne of Hashem is not complete because Am Yisrael hasn't achieved its mission yet. So therefore, means really everything we do either adds to or takes away from the Kisei HaKavod. Something which makes a Kiddush Hashem, something which is good, Avodas Hashem, that adds to the Kisei Kavod. Something which is negative, something which goes against Avodas Hashem, that takes away from the Kisei Kavod. So everything makes up the Kisei Kavod. And the Ein Nistar Mineged Einecha, and Vein Mish Yuchal Lastir Ma'asav Milfanecha. There's, people can try and hide things. People like to hide things, but there's no way we can hide things from the eyes of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So what I want to do here, this different parish on the bottom of Dober Shalom. You remember all of the in modern Hebrew, mifal is a factory. We remember all the activity, and also the yitzur, the creatures are not hidden from you. So he says a beautiful shot. Shebios ha'am bechsher ma'aseyem. When Am Yisrael does things right, we're doing things which are kosher. Us kiyumah mitzad ma'aseyem. Then Hashem gives us credit, and we flourish because of the things we do. But we don't do things the right way. Then the only reason we stick around is because we were created by Hashem. So we're the creatures of a Kodesh Baruch Hu created us. Just like any animal is alive. Even though he doesn't do anything to make himself good, because they're his creatures. Remember all the activities, when they're good, and that we survive on that basis and we thrive. If we're not doing so good in our deeds, so then there's not hidden from you all the creatures, like all other creatures are Hashem. So we say to Hashem, we say this very often to Hashem. We say if we merit, like we say, if we are good, so they'll keep us alive because we're good. If we're not good, so you're avodim, and just like a master has a responsibility to its pet or to an animal, a master responsibility to a slave. So keep us alive, let us go, because we're your slaves, we're your avodim. Okay, so that is now I have my own shot in this, which I'm going to give you now, and this is a very important thing which people don't realize. That I'm sure maybe you do, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Who made the davening, they made it extraordinarily flexible. You can come up with numerous, infinite number of interpretations. You don't not bombed by any interpretation of any mefarish which came before you. If you come to davening and you come to have a chiddush in davening, that's great. Come up with your own shot. Come up with your own understanding. That makes the davening that much more important and significant. So, I understand mifal to mean the project. In other words, the project gets done when all the activities of the project are done. So I think it means like this. You remember the entire project. And also every creature, how he fits into the project is not hidden from you. Because everybody is part of this grand project called Olam Hazeh. And where the question is, are we contributing to the project the way we're supposed to contribute to the project? So that's what we're being judged on Rosh Hashanah. There's a Shimon Shkop says that a person is if a person is doesn't say about Rosh Hashanah, but it's true about Rosh Hashanah specifically. If a person is doing well in his task in the project, so then we can give him more resources. If he's not doing well in the project, then why would we give him more resources? Not a good investment. So that's what happens. Rosh Hashanah. Hashem says, okay, let's see if you've done on your project of the last year. If you've done the project well last year, so then we should give you more resources. You're going to have more opportunity this year. If you haven't done well in the project, so we have to cut our losses. We're going to give you less this year. You remember the entire project, and each person, how they fit into the project, and is also part and parcel of how you determine what's going to happen this following year. By the way, the Sfarim say, why are they 2 days Rosh Hashanah? So the Zohar says that the first day of Rosh Hashanah is a Dina Kashya. It's a tough din. And the second day of Rosh Hashanah is a Dina Rafia. It's an easier din. What's the difference? So Rav Dessler explains, he says, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, everybody's judged as an individual. And that's tough. Because as an individual, we're looking at you alone. And a lot of us, when we're just by ourselves, we don't look so great. The second day, we're judged as part and parcel of our group. And very often, even if myself, I'm not a great guy, but I'm part of a group which is doing good stuff. Or even if I myself have failed occasionally, but I inspire the group in the long run. So therefore, if you are, it's easier to be zoche bedin on the second day because you're being judged in how you help others. First day, it's what are you doing yourself? The second day is how you help others in the larger group. So that is also part of the mifol, the project, right? You're part of the project, you're not by yourself, you're with other people. How are you going to fit into that? Let's see how it's going to work for the coming year. Everything is revealed and known before you, Hashem. So this is, I don't remember, somebody says this here, but the Hakol Galui V'Yadua, it's the Hashem sees everything, and that's how he knows everything. People always ask the question: if Hashem knows everything, how do we have free will? Anybody hear that question before? Hashem knows ahead of time everything we do. How do we have free will? So the easiest and best answer to that is Hashem exists out of time. In other words, so Hashem doesn't know things before they occur, because there's no before and after by Hashem. It's a hard concept, and it's very difficult to grasp, and we really can't grasp it, because we can't grasp things which are out of time. But we can grasp things which are out of space, so that's a muscle. In other words, if you're looking down, if there's a box which has ants in it, right, and you're looking down on the top of the box, so you're looking from outside the box at the ants scurrying back and forth. So you have to imagine a box which is time, and Hashem is on top of looking into that box from beyond time. So it's not that he knows ahead of time what we're going to do. Everything happens simultaneously. And another muscle to give for that is like a split screen TV. A split screen TV, you see two people like a Zoom, right? You see one person is in Bergenfield, another person is in Passaic, another person is in Muncie, but you see them all at the same time. So Hashem sees everything all time together. And that's how Rav Dessler explains how Zchus Avos works. It says we should, later on in this bracha, it says Hashem should remember for us the Akedah of Yitzchak. That's the very end of the bracha. So the question is, the Akedah of Yitzchak took place thousands of years ago. What good does it do it today? The fact that Avraham took Yitzchak Avinu up on Har Moriah. So if Dessler explains like this, he says Hashem, because Hashem is out of time and everything happens, so to speak, at once. So Hashem sees you on one block of the Zoom, and he sees the Akedah on the other block of the Zoom. So if there's some connection between you and the Akedah, so you could say, okay, there should be Zchus Avos because I see how this person in his behavior is connected to the Akedah Yitzchak, which took place so many years ago. But if a person's behavior is not similar to Akedah Yitzchak, so there is no Zchus. Again, it's because Hashem sees Akedah Yitzchak at the same time that he sees us, that if he can see this connection between us, so then we have Zchus Avos, we have the merit of our forefathers because we're continuing in their ways. Okay, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything is galui. Everything is revealed, all time. Right? And that's why it's Yodua. He knows it's not ahead of time. He knows because everything is revealed to him simultaneously. So a kol galui v'yodua v'nech Hashem Elokeinu. So fe umabit ad sof kol hadoros. So one of the things Hashem does, because he's beyond time, is he can gaze and look until the end of all generations. So fe umabit. It's a fascinating idea. Sofer means to look at it from a distance. And Sofer is a scout. He looks like with binoculars to see what's going on far away. Mabit means to look carefully, to look intensely at something. So what we're saying is Hashem is Sofer. He sees the overall theme, He sees overall, like a scout who sees the broad picture, and he also is mabit at sof koderos. He also examines things precisely. So everything which happens, like we said before, everything takes place on numerous levels, right? How it fits into the overall picture, and how the thing is in and of itself looking at very carefully, very minutely. And Hashem does to all generations. And this, again, this refers to something which I mentioned earlier about how Hashem judges dead people. There's a similar idea. In other words, if Hashem sees that during this coming school year, I'm going to have a good impact on my students, so then, that'll go at sof kol hadoros. That'll go to all generations. And therefore, it's worth investing in him. If he sees I'm going to do a lousy job with my students, so it's going to have a very negative impact at sof kol hadoros. Therefore, forget it. We're not going to invest in him. He's not a good investor for us. He's not going to pay off for us. So in essence, every deed a person does comes into cheshbon of how it's going to affect eternity. There's a famous story, I forgot, about two Rebbitzins who made a deal. I don't remember who they were. That whoever goes up to Shamayim first will come down and tell the other Rebbitzin what's going on in Shamayim. And okay, so one Rebbitzin passed away first, and she appears to the other Rebbitzin, and she says, as I asked her, what's going on in Shamayim? So she said, I can't describe it. It's beyond description. But you should know, everything you do in this world is taken into account. And once there was a time, I might not remember this precisely, but the idea is true. Once there was a time when we were looking at somebody down the street, and we're walking, and we waved at them. And that wave is taken into account. That wave is a chesed. So even waving at somebody when they're down the street is also taken into account. Everything becomes part of eternity, of the cheshbon of what you're accomplishing, what you're going to bring about. So he says, Kitavi chok zikaron yom hadin shel Yisrael v'korui I can't even read that word. The Kitav Zichron Shua Yelochem. The Karui. It's too blurry for me to read. I think it probably says chok. But in any event, chok Zichron. Brocho is called a chok. Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kes yom chagenu ki chok Yisrael hu mishpach Yaakov. Blow shofar on this day was this chok. So why is it called a chok? Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah, the word chok has many different meanings, but one of the meanings which it has is my portion, lechem chuki, the portion which is carved out for me for each and every meal, each and every day. So the Rosh Hashanah, Hashem decides, like I just said, what resources, what allocation, what is going to be my allowance for the coming year. But that's for Am Yisrael. But it's not just for Am Yisrael. Everybody is remembered, not just us. Even the people who don't know about Rosh Hashanah, they're also judged on Rosh Hashanah. So Lipakei Bedin, Kol Ruach V'Nefesh, any soul, any person, they're all brought into din on Rosh Hashanah. And how's that done? Hashem remembers many deeds and so many masses of creatures without any limits. Everything is taken account, like we said before. So I'm not going to translate again. Again, it's the deeds and the deeds and the people. Now, one thing. We'll come to it later. A few minutes. And it says, today is the beginning of your ma'asim. Zikaron Yom Rishon. So the remembrance of the first day. In other words, today is the tchilas ma'asecha. Today is the first day of the new year. Reb Chaim Friedlander says, people don't understand necessarily Rosh Hashanah. It's called Rosh Hashanah for the reason. It's not called Sof Hashanah. It's not called the end of the year, which we normally understand it to be. We understand it to be that, okay, let's make a cheshbon what this person did throughout the past year. That's true, but we only do that, as I mentioned before, in order to determine what's going to happen during the coming year. What happened during the past year indicates to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, indicates the base of Shamala, how you should get resources for the coming year. Just like in a company, every division has to come up with a budget, which it presents to the management to determine whether they should get their budget or not. So we come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, okay, based on past performance, maybe we didn't do so well, but give us a budget for the next year. And this year we'll do better. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for our budget for the coming year, right? So Zayam Chilas Masecha for the coming year, currently on Rishon, it reminds us of the first Rosh Hashanah many years ago when Hashem judged Adam Rishon and decided that he's the resource for Gan Eden is not worthwhile expending on Adam Rishon, and therefore Adam Rishon got kicked out of Gan Eden. Kichok Yisrael who? Mishpat Le'elokei Yaakov. So the way the Mepharshim explain this, I mentioned this possibly before, but the way the Mepharshim explain this is there are many of the interpretations I should say, but what I'm going to give you now is that there's a difference between you got Yisrael and Yaakov. Yisrael is usually the Jews on a high level, and Yaakov is on a lower level. They're used interchangeably, and that's not 100% accurate all the time. But generally speaking, that's the understanding. So one can understand this the chok here slightly different than what I said before, is that the Yisrael, people on the higher madrega, they're tzaddikim, they get things automatically because Hashem knows they're tzaddikim, they should deserve things. Mishpat Elokei Yaakov, but Hashem judges the people who are not exactly tzaddikim. Whereas for the tzaddikim, they go through quickly. They're going fast. They don't have to be judged. Hashem knows it's worthwhile investigating them. The people on the level of Yaakov, they have to be judged. They have to go through the slow lane. They have to go through security. Again, they have to make sure be checked out. So that's the difference between Yisrael, which gets automatically the allowance, and Yaakov. But it's not just individuals. It's not talking about people. V'amedinos, on the countries, Yibo Ye'amer. Today is going to be said, Ezel Acherev, Ezel Sholom, which one's going to be for sword, and which going to be for peace, in other words, war of peace. Ezel Rav, which are going to have famine, Ezel Soba, which are going to have a lot of food. And creatures will be checked up to match them for whether they should be alive or dead. The Dober Shalom here also is a nice shot. He says, so he says, first Hashem judges in general on the nations. Medina. Let's go to each every nation in general. And after that, Dan Derech Prat. He looks at each person in the country. Whether they should be kept alive or not. Because even if in some country there's decree there should be a war, maybe the individual will live. That's a very important point to make, which is Hashem looks at the world as nations. And the primary purpose of the world is Am Yisrael as a nation, leading other nations in the world. Then a secondary thing is individuals. But first Hashem looks at the nations and says, okay, how is this nation functioning? And then when they have a Gzar Din, Hashem says, okay, now the individuals, what Gzar Din should they have? Should they be just like the rest of the nation, or should they be different than the nation? But first let's call them Medinos, and then the Brios, whether they should go to live or die based on that Cherev Sholem, which we're talking about before. It's like a statement of astonishment. Who's not checked up on this thing? Everyone's checked up. Because the commemoration of all creatures, or the entire creature comes before you. That which a person done and that did, and that which happened to him as a result. By los mitzvah they cover, and the schemes which lie behind the person's steps. The thoughts of a person and his strategies. And the Yetzer, Yetzirah, Yetzirah, which are the cause of people's behavior. Those are all the different things, and the Dover Shalom explains it very beautifully. Ki zecher kol yitzur v'necha bo v'chui. Shem esadim, at the time of the judgment. Mizbonen hashofet kol haaretz, Hashem looks, v'chol elat chunas, in all these characteristics. Meiz siba nasa chet, meiz ofen nasa. For what reason the sin was done, and in what way it was performed. Shefayim sometimes siba sachet, the reason why people sin, is mitzvah molidah, because of their parents. Sheyuraim beteva, they're tough parents. They were not good people. And that's the case, the person who sins, it's not so much his fault. He was born into it. So therefore, we shouldn't be punished as much as a person who had good parents. So this says the shot in the zecher of all Yitzur, of all creatures comes before you. It comes in front of you the characteristics of how they were created, meaning with what characteristics they were created in terms of the people who gave birth. Hasheni, another reason to make things easier, you can make a punishment lighter, even though a person sinned. Shumitzad mem shalto. This has to do with what traits control it. Al derech shneimar, like it says, Ashir yaneh azus. A rich person is always a bit brazen, because rich people, they're in a position of power, they're in a position of respect, so therefore they tend to be tough people. So therefore, it's not so much the rich person's fault. Of course, it's his fault, but we take into account that at the position you're in, made it tougher to be a nice guy. Which is embedded in the laws of nature. So that's Hashem looking at the deeds of a person and that which happens to him in this world. If his deeds are going to be according to what has happened to him in his role of, literally his role of government, but in his role of power in this world. So a poor person who's a proud person is much worse than a rich person who's a proud person. Because a rich person you expect to be proud. They're both bad. But everything is taken into account in determining what the story is with the person. Hashlishi, the third one of Misponein, Hashem checks. Did he do the chait with all of his will and all of his strength, or was he forced to do the sin? In other words, sometimes I decide to do the sin. Sometimes, my friends convince me, they pressure me. So the second person, they shouldn't have done the sin either, but they're less responsible. They get less punished. That's this, and he says, how can we tell that? Zalilos mitzadei gover. Listen, we look at the story of a person's footsteps. We look at a person's steps when he does the sin. If he ran to do the sin, it shows that he was happy to do the sin. Or did he go slowly, step by step? Somebody who's being forced to do the sin. There's a Gemara which says that at the time when there was the Yetzer of Avodah Zarah, so Menashe, who was a king, one of the great kings, said that if people like you of later generations, were you around at the time of that Avodah Zarah, when there was the Yetzer for Avodah Zarah, you would have ran to Avodah Zarah. They would have picked up your skirts to make sure you didn't stumble over them while you were running. When we ran to Avodah Zarah, we knew we were doing something wrong, and therefore we left our skirts long, because we hoped maybe we would trip and fall while we were running to do Avodah Zarah. So the idea is, yes, you're going to do the Aveira, but how do you go about doing the Aveira? That also is part of the cheshbon on Rosh Hashanah, what's taken account. Haravi, the fourth one is Misponei Kavanas HaChet. Look at the intent of the sin. If he did it for some advantage of his pleasure, that's not as bad. Or he did it to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the thoughts of a person, and his strategies when he does the sin. Hachamishi, the fifth thing is we look at did the sin come because your Yetzer Hara pushed you to do it? The Yetzer comes to persuade you to do Averos. Gravera, which is less severe. Oh, Shadam Garam Batsmo Liskaros Hayetzim Nafshe. A person brought the Yetzer on himself. Zel Yitzrei Malei Ish. That's the Yetzer, which which causes a person's things to happen. But Yetzer Misibas Malei Ish. The Yetzer comes, and either the Yetzer comes, or it's a person planned on his own. Sheish Baal Yetzer. It says after people die, everybody goes to Adam Rishon. And they say to Adam Rishon, it's your fault that I died. And I'm upset at you. Adam Rishon says, yeah, it's my fault. Did you do X, Y, Z? So the person says, yes. So he says, if that's the case, it's not my fault you died. You would have done the same thing. What does he mean? It means, yes, because of Adam Rishon, there's a certain Yetzirah in the world. But everybody has a Beirus for which they didn't have a Yetzirah to begin with, but they brought a Yetzirah into themselves. They developed the Yetzirah. So that's what he's saying. If you had just sinned because the Yetzirah that I left for you, you have a taina. You'd say, you only died because of me. But you didn't. You sinned because the sins which you didn't have a desire to do, which you brought upon yourself. So had you brought upon yourself death, just like I brought upon myself death, by developing your own Yetzirah, not just the Yetzirah you're born with, but bringing up your own Yetzirah. And we'll finish with the next line tonight because it's running short. Ashrei ish lo yishkochecha, ve'adam yisam mitzvah. Praiseworthy is a person who doesn't forget Hashem. Now it's the other way around, right? Who came to the other side, and that, which is that until now, it's talking about Hashem remembering us. Now it's talking about us remembering Hashem. So somebody who doesn't ever forget Hashem, is praiseworthy. He's great. Ben Adam Yisam Mitzvah is a person who's on a lower level, but he gets courage from you from time to time. Omes is courage. So if you're on a level you never got Hashem, that's a higher level. If you're a low level, that's also good. So the idea is, let's try to remember Hashem as much as possible. That gives us a good, that is what we're supposed to try and be makabel upon ourselves on Rosh Hashanah. Girls, thank you for coming, especially the alumni who came. I really appreciate it. And we should be zoichet to learn more Torah this year. Take care. Ksiba chasima toiva. And you don't have to ask for Mechila. I'm Mechila everybody.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.